Did they? Oh, Linda. Give me a second too.
Sure.
Well, everybody's quarantined anyways. What are they going to be doing, right? They can wait.
They don't have to go anywhere. They can't.
Yeah. Let's see what we got here. Okay.
You got anything to make me look younger?
I,
Oh, good.
put a wig on me.
All right, Wyatt.
You counting down, or are we just going back on? All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks. This is the wonderful world of podcasting. You know, when I have the ability to talk to Emmanuel on a side screen while we're engaging the guest, and it's tough because you don't want to take your eye off the guest. You don't want to make it seem like you're not interested. But I kept hearing Emmanuel's voice there, and it's like, all right. So we apologize for the little technical glitch. Thanks for those of you who are listening. I see the birthday boy Justin Eichler is viewing. Look at this. Well, Evil Ed, do you have a connection or not? Evil Ed's on here. We got to figure out what's up with Evil Ed on getting him on this podcast again here with his connection. What do we have? Well, shout out to Robert Budson. Linda, how are you doing? Look at Linda. Give me the thumbs up. Brian Ekstrom, thanks for watching. Steve Subergano, hey, cuz, how you doing? Thomas Smith, Mike Razzo, my buddy Richard White, Rodney Brown.
Razzo.
Yeah, Chris Gorski, Louis Rubio, Teresa Sitton, Brian York, Mike Razzo, Chris Gorski. Guys, those of you who are, and thank you for viewing. You know, this podcast will live forever.
That's the beauty of it.
So you'll have the opportunity, depending on how good this goes, to point to it. But yeah, this is really good. And I got the sense this would be well watched, not only during the initial taping, but when it lives afterwards. You know, you can download and watch any of these podcasts wherever you get your podcast fixed. You know, it's either YouTube or Podomatic or I don't know, just easy to find. Just Google it. So Tracy, we were talking about some of the popular bikes, and yeah, those two colors, that 4-speed. And then I was asking about when these bikes come in, and how many bikes you think have come through the shop now? Just ballpark. Are we in the high hundreds or the 1,000? Are we around there somewhere?
Not 1,000. Okay, somewhere between 200 to 300.
So hundreds of bikes. What's the common problem when these things come rolling in? What are the 2 or 3 things that you can almost certainly go right to, knowing that they need a little bit of love, even if they didn't come in at 5,000 miles or whatever?
Yeah, but the beauty part about what I do is that I'm very fortunate. I just do mainly full restorations. We
go through everything then.
We go through everything and it gets stripped all the way down. But the unique thing about that, and I want to make this very clear, that you talk about, how I enjoy going into work every day, because every day's different, right? I mean, you're always doing something different. But one thing for sure, and you can attest to this, when I talk to that owner, I get that initial phone call. Look, this hasn't ran in 20 years, or, oh, I found this over in the corner of the garage, or, my son is I'm getting ready to be a grandpa now, and I would sure like my grandson to ride my bike, and I get that all the time. And they're just, they want, and Mike Razzo does a fantastic job. He does these customs and unbelievable work. But when the people that I deal with is mainly, they just want them as the way they had them when they were a kid, but they want that paint to look new, and they want it all to look new, and they want to present that to their son or their grandson. And I do a lot of that, to be honest with you. And the majority of them, and some of them do run, some of them may be a little weak. But I'm going to be honest with you, the majority of the bikes that we start all over on do not run. They definitely don't run. And I get them in boxes, baskets, anything, you know. So it's
A true
just,
basket case, huh?
yes, a true basket case. So, but it's amazing to me, the stories. I just love it because when I get up and go to work every day, I don't know what story I'm going to hear today, but promise you, there's a story behind every bike.
Well, now when you're online, there's also a story there every day about these bikes. There's so many different vintage style Facebook pages, and boy, you
Agreed.
go to uh, Pinterest or you go to any of these places where you're going to pull any images and you search for Honda Z50s, CT70s, and they're everywhere, and one's nicer than the other. And then you look at some of the bikes that are built in Japan. I have Robert David, the doctor, we call him.
Yeah.
He's, he's a collector out here in California. Wonderful man, and a participant in my mini bike show that we hold annually here in La Crescenta. In fact, I'd love to see you out there. You can judge our CT70 and our Z50 class. I would love for you to come out here. In fact,
I'd love to do it.
uh, we are hopeful that we'll have that event. The tentative date is October the 17th. It's
Perfect.
brought to you in part by many of the sponsors that support the show, as well as the presenting sponsor, again, Pioneer. We're hopeful, like many of us here, that all the events that we want to go to, I want to come and maybe see you at by attending the four-wheel jamboree in
Yes.
Indianapolis in July, and maybe see you at the Brickyard. But all that's up in the air. So right now, I'm buying mini bikes online, and I'm calling you up, and I see the rollers that you have, and boy, they're the right colors. They're the orange colors. You had that red, 72 model that I liked, and I'm looking at them, and we're talking prices. They seem to be priced somewhere from like a couple grand up to $3,500. And I wanted to just switch over to pricing on some of these bikes, because what I was getting at is when you are online, like I go to Craigslist, the first thing I do is CT70, then CT space 70, and then any other way you can conceivably spell it. And I
Twist.
try to find them. And I search all over, and they range ridiculously in price.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
from what I can tell, you offer runners that you can fire up and enjoy, God knows, for years, maybe with
Sure.
just, and then you have brand new ones that you've refurbished every nut and bolt. You've taken it through the entire process, and those sell somewhere what in the neighborhood of $6,000,
Six
somewhere in
thousand
that range.
dollars. Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now I've got a choice. I can I can buy a runner for a few $1,000s, but I'm probably going to be spending 1,000, 1,200 almost within the first couple of months. Before you know, you're going to be right up to 5 grand. So whether you buy a new one for 6 or you buy a used one and add to it and you creep up to 6, that's kind of the number, the 5, 6 number for the CT70s. Is that a good range for?
It is. It is. It's a very good range. But I will say this: I think as buyers out there, I think you really need to sit down and think about ultimately, what do I want to do with this bike? And looking at purchasing a bike, I think you need to ask yourself and be honest with yourself that you need to say, do I want to ride it around my neighborhood? Do I want to go on the mini bike ride with Joe? Because I'm going to be honest with you, if you buy a bike and it's a basket case and you want to get it fully restored for $6,000, I'm going to be honest with you, the people that I deal with, then they do not want to ride it.
Yeah.
Okay. After they get it fully restored, it's too pretty. They're afraid they're going to happen, or they're afraid that Joe's going to come across and get into it. Or so, I mean, I think you got to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, what do if it's something that you just want to putz around in your neighborhood, that's great. I think that $2,000, $3,500 bike will do everything you want it to do. I really do. But then you call it garage jewelry, right?
Yeah.
So some people just want that. They really don't want to go riding in the evenings, or they don't want to ride it on the weekend. They really don't. They just
No.
want to look at it.
Yeah, I think most of the guys that seem to be, well, I know the guys that I kind of hang around with are into these bikes. They want to, every once in a while, instead of going golfing, or every once in a while, instead of just hanging around the house, it's like, I'm going to call up my brother-in-law and my dad and my buddy from high school. We all have CT70. We're going to go take a ride somewhere. We're going to go somewhere. And, if you do that, what, 3, 4 times a summer, you're a lucky guy.
Right.
Maybe you want
True.
to put on the back of your cool pickup truck and bring it to the car show. That's been something that you see a lot of when you go to the car shows, the back of the, and if you got a bitchin' slam square frame Chevy pickup truck and you got a nice Honda in there or a nice mini bike in there, people love that. And again,
Oh,
it goes back to that. It's just the smile and the enjoyment people have seeing these bikes.
I can't tell you how many times a day I hear the story, and where I've done 5 or 6 bikes for people that have, you're talking about the bitchin' rides, the oak beds in the back of their
Oh yeah.
Chevy pickups. And so I built a bike for them and put it in the back. They put it in the back of their truck, and that's strapped down, but they have no intentions of ever getting that bike out of the back of their truck. It goes to the shows, the car shows, see,
Sure.
and they never get it out. But undoubtedly, after the weekend's over and Monday morning, I'll get this phone call, and the guy calls me up and he said, "Hey," he said, "just absolutely loved it. The show was fantastic. We won." But he said, "I got to tell you, I had $75,000 in my truck, and I give you $4,000 to restore my little Z50." And he said, "I got more compliments on the Z50 than I did with the truck." He said the Z50 won the show, the truck didn't.
Yep. I
So
I had a bike
I
that
hear those stories quite a bit.
I've had some mini bikes that uh, we had Jake Moe built for us, and one of them was a bike called Frankenstein. And I brought that bike out to a few functions, some major car shows and events. And to your point, people would walk by $100,000 frame off Chevelles and Novas and walk right to the mini bike. Oh, I had one just like that with a 5 horse, and here's my, they all have to show you the scars where
Oh
they
yeah.
fell down. So this used bike market, from the horse's mouth, guys, look, you don't have to go down and rake down 7 6 7 grand for garage candy. If you're into riding, a few grand, you may want to think about that as a good number. And everybody's looking for a little bit of a deal, and they're out there. I guess if you got the patience to to wait for that right bike for the right price. I'm looking, and I'm sure that many of you are too. I invite you to check out Tracy's place. It's Little Bikes Restoration. If you're in Indianapolis, and many guys are anxious to get to Indy for whatever reasons, whether you're into mud trucks or whether you're into Indy racing or NASCAR. Indianapolis, you can't go wrong if you're a car guy. That's a home of Meekum Auction, which takes place there, I think, every May.
In
So if
May.
you are out and about, you got to check him out. He's got a little bit of automotive underneath his feet too. The property, isn't that property owned by Bill Simpson? Did you say when we were
It is,
talking?
yeah. Of course, now it's the Bill Simpson Foundation.
Yeah, rest
Uh,
in peace, Bill.
but
We lost
Bill,
Bill.
I was very blessed, in when I talked to you on the phone about, hey, you're out there where Bill grew up. He and I spent. He was in my shop every day, 7 days a week. He would come in and say hello in the mornings, and then along about evening, he would tell me to go home. And I said, "Well, you're telling the wrong guy to go home, because you need to go home. You're the one that's 80." I said, "You need to be going home." And that guy still worked every single day. And I sure miss him. I know that. And so Sundays he would come in, and he called that his day off, and he would come in and sit for 4 or 5 hours with me on Sundays. So yeah, I got to know him really well, and he introduced me to a lot of great race people, and yeah, it's an honor to be in the building that I'm in.
Well, look, I would love to follow up on this opportunity to have a chance to talk to you. It feels like we're kind of meeting each other. That's the beauty of these online podcasts. Uh, are there any folks that you would like to take a moment to thank who help make the
Yeah.
Little Bikes Restoration
Well,
business work?
there's yes, there's so many. I mean, when I look back, I there's a guy that's been doing. I look at these guys who's been in the business they forgot about more than the Hondas than what I'll ever know, and Brian York out of Seymour, Indiana has given me a lot of insight. He has been doing it for about 20, 25 years. Mike Razzo is another one that if I ever call him, ask, or do anything, he is more than willing to help. And the same way with David Richards out Mike's Mini Trail out in Idaho. There's just so many people that has helped me, and one of the biggest thanks I have is the people at Dreyer Honda in Indianapolis. Steve does all my engines, and we set him up a shop a mile south of what you see online is just our assembly shop. That's not our engine shop. Our engine shop is a mile south of town, and that's where Steve does all his magic there. So yeah, he's just, the guy's been doing it forever. Junior Dreyer's been doing it. Pop Dreyer's the one that started it over 100 years ago, and so to have somebody like Steve to do the engines, it's incredible. It just really is. And a shout out to my Todd, guy that does all my painting there, just does an incredible job.
What do you have on the tables now? What are you almost close to completing? What types of projects are you almost done with over there?
Orange topaz, an emerald green, and I have two SLs up there, waiting on engines there. In the pipeline, I just counted today, as a matter of fact, that before I come home, I got with Todd just to make sure, and we have 21 bikes in the paint shop today.
Wow.
So yeah, that's 21 at one time. And usually on the floor, on the assembly floor, I think when you panned around there the other day, or I panned around it for you to look, I've had as many as 22 on the floor. And today there's about 8. There's about 8 of them in there. So the picture that people refer to quite a bit is on our homepage, and it's where I literally crawled up on top. So it's 25 feet to the ceiling. It's 25 or 30 feet. It's concrete building. So, and shot the picture down. And people ask me a lot, especially people who's inquiring about maybe getting their bike restored. They said, I got to ask you, is that photoshopped? And I said, no, that was just our shop every day. And they said, my goodness, it's so clean you could eat off the floor. And that's the way we keep it. Just, every day, every minute's that clean.
Well, I call the attention to those of you who may be watching the photos that I posted again yesterday on the Facebook page, and those photos that Emmanuel's been running. There's a group photo that you may see a really clean petty blue SL70. What a beautiful miniature motorcycle that is. And that recently sold. Do you mind giving folks an idea like what that blue SL70 sold for?
Yeah, 6,000.
And you had that beautiful red 74 Z50, which is still available. Talk a little bit about that bike, because guys, if you're ever in the market for a Honda Z50 and you want one totally restored with all the attention to detail, that red Z50 is awesome. Talk a little bit about that bike and what's that priced at?
Well, the Z50s that I do start around 5,500, but the Z50 that I believe that I showed you the picture of, that was a 69K1 that went into a man's office in Pennsylvania, with the wood background. Yeah,
yes.
Great.
Oh, that was a great photo. Yeah, so, I saw that one. Yeah. What about the latter model, the 74? Was that a 74, the red one?
75.
Oh, 75. Okay.
One. Yes. Yeah. And so, yes,
that's available, right?
Available. And those are anywhere from 72 to 78. I sell those for $4,000.
So guys, there you have it. Bikes that will make you the star of your neighborhood, but more pointedly, put a smile on your face every time you either go into your man cave, your garage, or maybe your office, maybe the back of your pickup truck. Maybe it's something that you use when the kids come around, even if you're just giving a little putt around the backyard, getting them started, because that's what these bikes are designed to do. They're designed to get these young kids in, get them intoxicated on it, and then use it as an incentive. It's a reward to ride the bikes. You do good in school, you get your own bike. There's so much goodness that comes from those little bikes. They're machine-like. They're like sewing machines, Hondas. They really don't break down. And if they break down, it's usually one or two things. We talked about things like a hardened gas line hose or,
right.
Something along those lines.
Not much goes wrong.
like my grandma Corey used to say, you can fix them with a little WD-40 and a toothpick and maybe a little gum. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Now,
look, they're going up in price. So when you think about it, it's a pretty decent investment. But more pointedly, it's like, it's something that you want. And if you want it and you're looking for a small bike, and it's not just Hondas, although that's Tracy's area of expertise. You've had a couple other different models in there. I've seen you have a couple of Yamahas in there. You used to do the GT80 Yamahas. I used to have one
yeah,
of those.
I haven't, but that's how I got started was the GT80
Great little bike.
and cute little bike,
Yep.
fun to do. And then I got started right in on the Hondas.
I taught my buddy Brian Pake, who was you know, he's in his 30s at the time, but he learned how to ride. His first bike was that GT80. And
Right.
that's
Great
all,
little bike.
another one of those bikes that I should have kept, like the hundreds of others. But hey, Tracy, is there anything else that maybe you wanted to talk about that we didn't have a chance to talk about? I wanted to touch on a few things, but we're kind of running out on time. Most folks may not know, but Tracy has been involved in the professional golf game and spent some time. Was it South Carolina?
South Carolina, yeah, I started in Charleston, South Carolina, and then ended up teaching golf. There's a PGA certified master instructor that out of Hilton Head, and spent 3 years in Hilton Head. And boy, you want to talk about a pretty area,
Oh, for
man!
sure.
Hilton Head, South Carolina is pretty. So anyway, and people always say to me, well, why in the world did you move back to Indiana? And I said, well, it's because of my beautiful wife, Kelly. I mean, you take one look at her, I mean, my goodness.
We had the chance to do that, and we had a chance to see her putting up the backdrop. Although she wasn't very successful. Next time we have you on the podcast, we'll have
Yeah.
the full signage. Guys, look, you don't need to wait for Kelly to show up on, or excuse me, well, not Kelly and Tracy, Kelly too. We'll add Lucas too. You don't have to wait for all of them to show up on a podcast to get to talk with them. Check them out on their Facebook page. Give them a call. He's available, and if he's not available, Kelly will be there.
And love and one side note, Joe, that we field all kinds of questions. So don't think there's anything that you're afraid to ask, or whether it's about a used bike or a new bike, or hey, I would love to have you do my bike, but it's expensive because you recommend someone else. And to be honest with you, I have people that call me up almost daily and say, I don't have a Honda, but I've got another little brand. Can you recommend someone to me? And usually I've got buddies in this business, and learn to know of others who's really good in that field. So we're always happy to just suggest someone else. Absolutely.
Uh, Look, I want to thank you for not only being on the podcast, Tracy, but coming on kind of on a quick notice. Sometimes those things just work out great. I hope you had a good enough time and as good of a time as I did on the podcast. Thank you for the insight. Thanks for doing such a great job over there too.
Yeah.
You're really, your passion shows. And I will
Yeah.
tell you that I'm sure that the next time I'm in the market to buy one of these small Honda bikes, I'll be making my purchase with you at Little Bikes Restoration.
Well, thank you very much, Joe, and thank you for having us on. And I'm going to kind of hold you to it. I'm going to come out there and judge that show if I can,
I'd love to have
I
you.
would love to be out there and spend some time with y'all.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy, and we look forward to maybe having you on a future Joe's Mini Bike Reunion podcast.
Please.
Sleep well, and
Love to.
thanks, Kelly and Lucas, as well.
I definitely will. And good night, everybody, and thank you for being on, Joe and the team there. Thanks so much. We appreciate
Our pleasure.
it.
Really pleasure to meet you. All right, folks. So there you have it. Our guest for tonight, Tracy Schooler from Little Bikes Restoration. I want to announce our winner, Teresa Sitten. Teresa, congratulations. You've won a Joe's Mini Bike Reunion t-shirt and hat. PM me, and I'll be more than happy to send something out to you. And once again, guys, if you're looking for your next CT70 Z50 SL model, you better get to Indiana. All right. Our next podcast, it's the big celebration of Cinco de Mayo, May the 5th. It's on a Tuesday. We want to celebrate all our Mexican-American mini bike friends. I want to hear from Corona Irving. He's my favorite. I reached out to him. We'll see if we can get Corona Irving on the podcast. If you're a Mexican-American and you have a mini bike story that you'd like told, maybe that podcast could be for you. Hook up with E. Well, I had a good time. I'm going to go back and spend some time with Boom Boom myself. For those of you who tuned in, we appreciate it. Emmanuel, great job. Tracy, thank you. We'll see you on the next Joe's Mini Bike Reunion podcast. See you next time. Be safe and stay in.
Joe's Mini Bike Show.